I woke up in a silk bed that wasn't mine, in a body that didn't feel like my own, with strangers calling me by a name I had never heard before, and when I looked in the mirror, I realized I had become the villainess of a novel I had read the night before, the cruel heiress everyone hated, and the book said I was supposed to ruin a handsome CEO's life, but at our very first meeting, instead of following the script, I did something that changed everything. I kissed him, and in that moment, I discovered that his pain ran deeper than mine, that his mother wasn't dead like everyone believed, and that the truth about who I really was would unlock a secret so shocking it would either destroy us both or finally set us free. Before we dive into this incredible story, do not forget to subscribe and hit the bell icon button so you never miss our powerful, life-changing content. She became the villainess in a rich family novel and kissed a handsome CEO at first meet. Happy end. I woke up with a start. The sheets beneath my fingers were impossibly soft. They were not my cheap cotton sheets from my studio apartment. This was silk, pure, white, expensive silk that I bolted upright, my heart hammering against my ribs. The room was massive. It was drenched in morning light from floor to ceiling windows. I saw a chandelier. I saw a vanity with a Hollywood mirror lined with light bulbs. I saw a walk-in closet the size of my old living room. A phone buzzed on the nightstand. I picked it up, and my blood ran cold. The screen displayed a news alert with a photo. The photo was of me, but it was not me. It was a woman with my face, but with perfect, glossy hair and a cold, sharp look in her eyes. The headline read, Serena Van Helsing, heiress or homewrecker. The downfall of the city's most hated socialite. Then, the memories hit me, not my memories, memories that I had gone to sleep in my cramped apartment, reading a trashy novel called The Tycoon's Secret Baby. And I had woken up as the villainess of that very book, Serena Van Helsing, the beautiful, cruel, and deeply lonely antagonist who spends the entire novel trying to ruin the pure-hearted heroine. Her goal was to marry the hero, the billionaire CEO Alexander Blackwood. For his money my goal was to survive. I end the book. Serena's story ends in disgrace and exile. I was not going to let that happen, but I had to play the part. The first test came that very afternoon. According to the book's timeline, this was the day of the annual Van Helsing Foundation Gala. It was the event of the year, and it was the night Serena was supposed to make her first dramatic move on Alexander. I wore the gown she had chosen. It was a blood-red dress that felt like a suit of armor. I walked into the grand ballroom, and 100 pairs of eyes turned to judge me. I could feel the whispers, there she is. So arrogant. Did you hear what she did to that waitress last week? Their words were like little darts. The old Serena would have lifted her chin and sneered, but their disdain just made my stomach clench with an ache I did not expect. Then, I saw him. He was standing by the floor-to-ceiling windows, a glass of whiskey in his hand. He was looking out at the city lights, and his broad shoulders seemed to carry the weight of the world. Alexander Blackwood, the CEO, the hero. The man I was supposed to trap. He turned, and our eyes met. The book described him as handsome, but the book was a liar. He was breathtaking, not in a polished, perfect way. In a real way. He had a strong jaw, dark hair that was slightly too long, and eyes the color of a stormy sea, but it was the expression in those eyes that stopped me cold. It was not the cold, arrogant stare of a tycoon. It was a look of deep, profound tiredness, and beneath that, a flicker of something else, something that looked a lot like pain. The plan, according to the novel, was simple. I was to approach him, make a cutting remark about his family's new money, and then, accidentally, spill my drink on him to create a scene. It was pure villainy. I took a step towards him. The whispers grew louder. Another step. The chandeliers seemed to dim. I stopped right in front of him. He looked down at me, his jaw tight, waiting for the attack he had no doubt faced 1,000 times before. I opened my mouth, but the cruel words from the script would not come. I saw it then. A tiny, almost invisible tremor in the hand that held his glass. I saw the loneliness in the way he stood slightly apart from everyone. I saw a person, not a character, and in that moment, I forgot I was a villainess. I forgot I was in a novel. I only saw a man who looked like he understood what it felt like to be hated for simply existing. So, I did the only thing that felt true. I did not spill my drink. I did not insult his mother. I leaned in. The world seemed to hold its breath, and I kissed him. It was not a seductive, villainous kiss. It was soft. It was tender. It was a question. For one heart-stopping second, he was rigid as a statue. I felt the shock jolt through his entire body. Then, something in him broke that I felt a shudder run through him, a release of tension so profound it was almost a sob. His free hand came up, not to push me away, but to gently cup the back of my head. His fingers threading through my hair that he kissed me back, that it was not passionate, that it was desperate, that it was a man drinking water after a lifetime in the desert. When we finally pulled apart, his eyes were wide, confused, and shining with a vulnerability no one in this room had ever seen. "Why?" he whispered, his voice raw, that I did not have an answer that made sense. "Because," I said, my own voice trembling, "you looked like you needed someone to see you." For a long moment, he just stared at me. The mask was gone, the CEO, the billionaire, the untouchable hero, was gone, that in his place was just a man, a man whose hand was still gently holding mine. The whispers in the ballroom had stopped, the entire world had narrowed to just the two of us. That he opened his mouth to speak, to shatter the silence, but before he could, a new voice cut through the air like a knife. "Well, isn't this a touching display?" We turned. That a woman stood there, elegant and poised, but her eyes were fixed on Alexander with a look of such bitter ownership that it made my skin crawl. That it was not the heroine of the book, that it was someone else entirely, someone who was not in the story at all. "Mother," Alexander said, his voice going flat. That my blood turned to ice. This was not in the novel. His mother was supposed to be dead. She smiled. "And it was the coldest thing I had ever seen." "Serena Van Helsing," she purred, looking me up and down. "How clever of you to find a new way to get your claws into my son. But this little act of yours changes nothing." She took a step closer, her eyes glinting with a secret. "You have no idea who you are, do you? What you really are." I felt Alexander's hand tighten on mine, a silent warning, but it was too late. The shock of her appearance, the mystery in her words, it all crashed down on me. This was not a simple love story anymore, this was a maze. And we had just stepped into the darkest part of it. That I looked from the cold, triumphant smile of his mother to the storm of fear and fury in Alexander's eyes. The kiss had opened a door. But what walked through it was something far more terrifying than a villainess. That it was the truth. His mother's words hung in the air between us, sharp and poisonous. Alexander stepped forward, positioning himself slightly in front of me. That it was a small gesture, but it spoke volumes. "Not here, mother," he said, his voice low and dangerous. She laughed. That it was a sound like breaking glass. "Oh, Alexander. Still trying to protect everyone. Still carrying the weight of the world on those broad shoulders of yours." She reached out and touched his face. That he flinched. That I saw it clearly. That he actually flinched from his own mother's touch. "What do you want?" I asked, my voice steadier than I felt. Her eyes snapped back to me. They were the same stormy sea color as Alexander's, but where his held pain, hers held only cold calculation. "I want what I have always wanted," she said. "What is mine?" She turned and walked away without another word. The crowd parted for her like she was royalty. Alexander stood frozen, his hand was still gripping mine, but he was 1,000 miles away. "Alexander," I whispered. That he blinked. That he looked at me like he was seeing me for the first time. "I am sorry," he said. "You have nothing to be sorry for." He shook his head. "You do not understand. My mother. She is supposed to be dead. I mourned her. I built a foundation in her name. I carried her memory in my heart every single day." His voice cracked. "And now she is here. Looking at me like I am a stranger. Like I am an enemy." I did not know what to say to so I just stood there, holding his hand. The gala continued around us, music played, champagne flowed, people laughed, but we were in our own little bubble of confusion and pain. "We should leave," I said finally. That he nodded. That we walked out through a side door. The night air was cool and clean. That it felt like escaping a prison. His car was waiting. That a sleek black thing that probably cost more than my old apartment building. The driver opened the door. That we slid into the back seat together. The silence was heavy. But it was not uncomfortable. That it was the silence of two people who did not know each other but felt like they had known each other forever. "Where to, sir?" the driver asked. Alexander looked at me. "Where do you want to go?" I thought about my old apartment, about the life I had left behind, about the novel and the villainess and all the rules I was supposed to follow. "Somewhere quiet," I said. "Somewhere we can talk." He gave the driver an address. That we drove through the city, the lights blurred past the windows that I watched his reflection in the glass that he looked younger in the darkness, softer, more human. The car stopped outside a small building that it was not a penthouse or a mansion, that it was a modest brownstone. "This is where I go when the world gets too loud," he said. That we went inside. The walls were lined with books, real books, not decorations. You could tell they had been read. There was a fireplace with a fire already burning. A guitar in the corner. A kitchen that looked used, not just for show. "This is not what I expected," I admitted. That he smiled. That it was a small smile, but it reached his eyes. "What did you expect?" "I do not know." "Marble floors. Abstract art. A fridge full of champagne and nothing else." He laughed. That it was a real laugh, warm and genuine. "My father raised me in penthouses and boardrooms," he said. "This place. This is mine. I bought it with my first real paycheck. Before the inheritance. Before the company. Back when I was just a kid trying to prove I could make it on my own." He gestured for me to sit. That I sank into an old leather couch. That it was soft and worn and perfect. That he sat across from me. The fire crackled between us. "Tell me about your mother," I said carefully. That he stared into the flames. "She died when I was 12. At least, that is what they told me. There was a car accident. A bridge. A river. They never found her body. But they found her car. Her purse. Her phone. Everyone said the current must have carried her away." He paused. "I cried for a year. I think I am still crying, somewhere deep inside. You do not get over losing a parent at 12. You just learn to carry it." I felt tears pricking at my own eyes. "I am so sorry. She was everything to me. She was warm and kind, and she smelled like lavender. She used to sing to me at night. Old songs. Songs her mother taught her." He looked at me. "And tonight, she looked at me like she wanted to destroy me." "Maybe it was not her," I offered weakly. "It was her. I know my mother's face. I have stared at photographs of that face for 20 years. It was her." We sat in silence for a long moment. Then he turned the tables. "What about you, Serena? I have heard the stories. Everyone has. The spoiled heiress. The cold heart. The cruel words. But tonight, you looked at me like you actually saw me. Like you cared. Which one is real?" My heart stopped. That I could not tell him the truth. That I could not say, "I am not really Serena. I am a girl from a different world who woke up in her body after reading about you in a book." He would think I was insane, but I could not lie to him either, not after that kiss, not after seeing his pain. "Both," I said carefully. "And neither. I have done things I am not proud of. I have said cruel things. I have pushed people away. But underneath all of that, there is someone who is just as lost and lonely as you are." He studied me for a long moment. "I believe you," he said finally. "You do." "I do not know why. But I do." He stood up and walked to the window. "My mother being alive changes everything. It means the accident was faked. It means someone lied. It means she has been out there all this time, watching me, and she never once tried to contact me." His voice shook. "What kind of mother does that?" I stood up and walked to him. That I placed my hand on his arm. "I do not know," I said honestly. "But we are going to find out. Together." He turned to face me. His eyes were wet. "Why would you help me? You barely know me." "Because," I said, "you looked at me tonight like no one has ever looked at me before. Like I mattered. Like I was not just a villain in someone else's story." He reached up and touched my face. His fingers were warm. "I do not understand any of this," he whispered. "But I know I do not want you to leave. I am not going anywhere." He kissed me again. That it was different this time, slower, deeper, full of promise. the night stretched on that we talked until the fire burned low that we talked about childhood and pain and the people we wished we could be that we fell asleep on the couch, wrapped in each other's arms. When I woke up, sunlight was streaming through the windows, Alexander was still asleep, his face was peaceful, younger, for a moment, everything felt perfect. Then my phone buzzed that it was a text from an unknown number. I know who you really are. Meet me at the old Van Helsing estate. Come alone. Or I will tell Alexander everything. My blood ran cold that I looked at the sleeping man beside me, the man I was falling for, the man I had lied to by omission, that I had a choice, that I could ignore the message, that I could pretend it never came, or I could go, that I could face whoever this was, that I could fight for this, for him, for us, that I carefully extracted myself from his arms, that I found paper and a pen, that I wrote him a note. I have to go handle something. I will explain everything when I get back. Trust me. Please. I kissed his forehead that he stirred but did not wake, then I walked out the door. The old Van Helsing estate was on the edge of the city, that it had been empty for years, or so everyone thought. The gates were rusted, the gardens were overgrown, but the front door was unlocked, that I pushed it open. The foyer was dark and dusty, but there was light coming from a room down the hall, that I walked toward it. My heart pounded in my chest that I entered the room, and there she was, Alexander's mother, sitting in an old armchair like a queen on a throne. Ah, Serena, she said with that cold smile. Or should I call you by your real name? The name from before you woke up in that hospital bed and forgot everything? I froze. What are you talking about? She stood up, she walked toward me slowly. I am talking about the fact that you are not Serena Van Helsing. You never were. Serena died 5 years ago. In a car accident. Just like my death. And you. You are the girl who woke up in her body with no memory of who you used to be. The world tilted. That is not possible. Isn't it? You have her face. Her memories came back slowly, didn't they? But they never felt quite right. Like a dress that almost fits but pinches in all the wrong places. I thought about it, about waking up in that hospital bed 5 years ago, about the nurses who said I had been in a coma, about the family who visited but always seemed slightly uncomfortable, about the life I had lived as Serena that never felt like mine. Who was I? I whispered. She smiled. That, my dear, is the question, isn't it? And the answer is the one thing I want. What do you want? The same thing I have always wanted. Control. Power. The Blackwood fortune. All of it. And you are going to help me get it. Or what? Or I tell Alexander that the woman he is falling for is a fraud. A body snatcher. A girl who stole someone else's life. He will never trust you again. He will never look at you the way he looked at you last night. Tears burned in my eyes, not for myself, but for the look on Alexander's face when he found out, that look of betrayal, that look of pain that I could not bear it, but I also could not betray him by helping his mother destroy him. I will not help you, I said. She raised an eyebrow. Brave. Foolish. But brave. She pulled out her phone. Then I will make the call. Wait. The voice came from behind me that I spun around. Alexander stood in the doorway, his eyes were on his mother, but his hand reached out and found mine. I heard everything, he said quietly. Every word. His mother's face flickered with something, fear, perhaps, or surprise. Alexander, she said smoothly. This is not what it looks like. This is exactly what it looks like, he said. You faked your death. You let me grieve for 20 years. And now you want to use the woman I love to destroy me. The word hit me like a wave. Love, that he said. Love, that he looked at me. I do not care who you were before. I do not care how you came to be here. I know who you are now. I know your heart. I know your kindness. I know the way you look at me like I am human and not just a paycheck. That is who I love. Tears streamed down my face. Alexander. He squeezed my hand, then he turned back to his mother. You have two choices. You can walk out of here and never contact us again. Or I can call the police and report you for fraud, for faking your death, and for attempted blackmail. The choice is yours. For a long moment, no one moved, then his mother laughed that it was a broken sound. Look at you. So strong. So noble. Just like your father. She walked toward the door, she paused beside me. You are lucky, whoever you are. He is a good man. Do not waste him. Then she was gone, the silence rushed in. Alexander pulled me into his arms that I buried my face in his chest and sobbed that he held me that he did not let go. I was so scared, I whispered. I know. I was too. When I woke up and you were gone, I thought I had lost you. I thought I imagined everything. Then I saw your note and I knew. I knew you were in trouble. I followed you here. I do not know who I am. He pulled back and looked at me. I know who you are. You are the woman who kissed a stranger at a gala because she saw his pain. You are the woman who stayed up all night talking to me about dreams and fears and hope. You are the woman I love. That is enough. That is everything. I looked into his stormy sea eyes, and for the first time since I woke up in that silk-sheeted bed, I felt like I was home, that we walked out of that dark estate together, hand in hand. The sun was warm on our faces, that we did not know what the future held, that we did not know who I used to be. But we knew who we were now. Two people who found each other in the middle of chaos. Two people who chose love over fear. Two people who kissed at first meet and decided to never let go, and that, I realized, was the only truth that mattered. The weeks that followed were a blur of discovery and healing. That we hired a private investigator, a quiet woman with kind eyes who did not judge our strange story. She dug into my past, into the real me, the girl before Serena. What she found changed everything. My name was Emma Clark. That I grew up in a small town 3 hours from the city. My parents ran a little bookstore. The kind with creaky floors and the smell of old paper. That I had a dog named Max, a golden retriever who waited by the door every day for me to come home. That I was studying to be a librarian. That I loved stories. That I loved the way they could transport you anywhere. That I loved the way they could make you feel less alone. And then, 5 years ago, I visited the city for the first time. That I was 22 years old. That I wanted to see the big libraries, the famous bookstores. That I was crossing a street when a car ran a red light. That I remember nothing after that. Nothing until I woke up in a hospital bed with strangers calling me Serena. The investigator handed me a photograph. That it was me. My real face, standing in front of that little bookstore. My arms around a woman with my smile and a man with my eyes. My parents. They never stopped looking for you, the investigator said softly. They put up posters. They started foundations. They came to the city every year on the anniversary of the accident. They are still there. Waiting. I could not breathe. That I had parents, real parents, people who loved me, people who had been grieving me for 5 years while I lived someone else's life. Alexander drove me there himself. That he did not ask if I was ready. That he just took my hand and said, "Let's go home." The drive was 3 hours, but it felt like a lifetime. That I watched the city fade into countryside. That I watched tall buildings become trees. That I watched my reflection in the window and tried to see Emma. That I tried to remember. And then, there was, the bookstore. That it was smaller than I remembered. Or maybe I just remembered it through a child's eyes. The sign above the door read, Clark's Books. It was painted in cheerful colors. The windows were full of displays, cozy reading nooks, stacked towers of new releases. A little bench outside with a sign that said, "Sit and stay a while." My heart was pounding so hard I thought it might break through my ribs. Alexander parked the car. He looked at me. "I am right here," he said. "Whatever you need. I am right here." I nodded. That I could not speak. That we walked to the door together. A little bell chimed as we entered. The smell hit me first, old paper, leather bindings. A hint of coffee from the little machine in the corner. It was the most beautiful smell in the world. And then I saw her. An older woman with gray streaked hair. And my smile, she was behind the counter, arranging a stack of books. She looked up when the bell chimed. She smiled automatically, the smile of a shopkeeper greeting customers. "Welcome to Clark's Books," she said. "Let me know if you need any help finding anything." I could not move. I could not speak. I just stood there, staring at her. At the lines around her eyes. At the way she tucked a strand of hair behind her ear, the exact same way I did. Alexander squeezed my hand gently. It's okay, he whispered. Why mother tilted her head, her smile faded slightly. She was studying me now, the way you study someone who seems familiar but you cannot place. I'm sorry, she said slowly. Do I know you? And then it happened. A memory, not Serena's memory, mine. That I was 5 years old, standing in this very store, reaching up to touch a book on a high shelf. Why mother's hands lifting me up, her voice in my ear. Which one do you want, sweetheart? Take your time. We have all the time in the world. Tears flooded my eyes. Mom, I whispered. The word felt strange on my tongue, but it also felt like coming home. She went completely still, the book in her hand slipped and fell to the counter with a soft thud. What did you call me? I don't know how to explain this, I said, my voice breaking. I know it sounds crazy. I know you probably think I am some kind of scammer or a crazy person. But I woke up 5 years ago in a hospital with no memory of who I was. They told me I was someone else. I lived someone else's life. But I am starting to remember. I remember this store. I remember you lifting me up to reach the books. I remember Max. I remember his big wet nose and the way he would bark at the mailman every morning. My mother's hand flew to her mouth, her eyes were wide, shining with tears. Oh my God, she breathed. From the back room, a man's voice called out. Margaret? Everything okay out there? My father emerged from behind a curtain of hanging beads. That he was older than the photograph, grayer, weary in a way that broke my heart. That he looked at me. That he looked at my mother crying. That he looked at Alexander standing protectively beside me, and then he looked at me again, longer this time, deeper. Emma, he whispered. That it was the first time in 5 years anyone had called me by my real name. The sound of it broke something inside me. That I crumbled. That I fell to my knees in the middle of that beautiful little bookstore and sobbed. And then my parents were on the floor with me. Why mother's arms around me. Why father's hand on my back. That we cried together. That we held each other. That we did not let go. Alexander stood quietly by the door. That he gave us space, but I felt his presence there. A steady anchor in the storm. Hours passed. Or maybe minutes, time did not matter anymore. That we talked and cried and talked some more. That I told them everything, the waking up in the hospital, the strange family who visited but never seemed to truly see me, the life of Serena Van Helsing, the loneliness, the gala, the kiss, Alexander, his mother, the truth. They listened without judgment. Why mother held my hand the entire time. Why father kept shaking his head and muttering, my little girl. My little girl is alive. When I finally finished, the sun was setting outside the bookstore windows, golden light poured through the glass. It lit up the dust motes floating in the air. It made everything look magical. Why mother looked at Alexander. You love her? She asked simply. Yes ma'am, he said without hesitation. More than anything. And you are okay with all of this? The confusion. The mystery. The fact that she is not who everyone thought she was. He walked over and knelt down beside me. He took my hand. I love who she is. Not who she was supposed to be. Not the name on her birth certificate. Her. The woman who kissed me at a gala because she saw my pain. The woman who stayed up all night talking to me about dreams. The woman who walked into a dark estate alone to protect me from my own mother. That woman. She is everything. My mother smiled through her tears. Then you are welcome in this family, Alexander. My father cleared his throat. There is just one problem. We all looked at him. The Van Helsings. They are powerful people. If they find out Emma is not really their daughter, they will not just let her go. They will fight. They will use their money and their lawyers and their influence. Alexander nodded slowly. I know. I have been thinking about that. My lawyers are already working on it. We have evidence of the accident. We have medical records. We have the investigator's report. Serena Van Helsing died 5 years ago in that hospital. The family just covered it up. They needed an heir to maintain control of the trust fund. Emma was young. She had no family nearby. She was perfect. I stared at him. You knew all this? I suspected. I wanted to be sure before I told you. I did not want to hurt you more. I threw my arms around him. I love you, I whispered into his neck that he held me tight. I love you too, Emma. I love you too. My mother clapped her hands together. Well. This calls for a celebration. Joseph, go get the good wine. I am making dinner. Everyone is staying. We ate together that night, sitting around a small kitchen table in the back of a bookstore. It was simple food, roast chicken and vegetables, bread from the bakery down the street, the good wine my father had been saving for a special occasion. It was the best meal of my life. Max was gone. He had passed 2 years ago, old and tired and loved until the very end, but my parents showed me pictures, dozens of them. Max waiting by the door, Max stealing socks, Max curled up on my childhood bed, still waiting for me to come home. I cried again, but they were good tears, tears of remembering, tears of belonging. Late that night, Alexander and I sat on the little bench outside the bookstore. The stars were bright overhead, the town was quiet. I do not want to go back, I said softly. Then do not. I have to. There are things to handle. The Van Helsings. The legal stuff. Your company. He was quiet for a moment. What if we handled it together? What if we came back here after? Built a life here? I turned to look at him. You would leave the city? Your empire? He smiled. My empire is just buildings and money. This is real. You are real. I would give up all of it for this bench and these stars and you beside me. I kissed him, right there on that little bench outside my parents' bookstore, under the stars of my real hometown. We will figure it out, I said. Together. Together, he agreed. The next few months were hard. There were lawyers and court dates and ugly confrontations. The Van Helsings fought dirty. They tried to discredit me, they tried to paint me as a gold digger, they tried to turn the media against us, but Alexander was a fortress, and my parents stood beside me through it all. My mother came to every court date. She sat in the front row and held my hand. My father stood outside and gave interviews to any reporter who would listen. He told them about his daughter, the real one, the one who loved books and dogs and sitting on the bench outside the store, the one who had been stolen from them for 5 years. The story touched people. It went viral. The Van Helsing's dirty laundry was aired for the world to see, the cover-up, the fake death, the way they had used an amnesiac girl as a puppet. Public opinion turned. The courts ruled in my favor. I was legally declared Emma Clark. The Van Helsing name and fortune were stripped away and given to distant relatives who had nothing to do with the scandal. I did not want any of it anyway. I had everything I needed. The day it was all over, we went back to the bookstore. My mother had hung a banner over the door. Welcome home, Emma. There was a party, the whole town came, people I had known as a child but did not remember. They brought food and flowers and stories. They told me about the girl I used to be, the girl who helped old ladies carry their groceries, the girl who read to children at the library, the girl who dreamed of filling the world with stories. I listened to every word. I gathered each memory like a treasure, and slowly, piece by piece, I started to remember. Not everything, maybe I never would, but enough to feel like me, enough to feel whole. That night, after the party ended and the last guests went home, Alexander and I walked through the quiet bookstore. The moonlight streamed through the windows. It lit up the spines of thousands of books. Look at all these stories, I whispered. And now you get to be part of them, he said. I smiled. We both do. He pulled me close. You know, I never believed in fate. I never believed in happy endings. I thought life was just a series of transactions. Give and take. Win and lose. And now I know better. Now I know that sometimes the universe throws you into chaos just so you can find your way home. Just so you can find the person you were always meant to find. I rested my head on his chest. I listened to his heartbeat, strong and steady, mine. We should get married, I said. He laughed. Are you proposing to me, Emma Clark? Maybe I am. He lifted my chin and looked into my eyes. Then my answer is yes. 1,000 times yes. We stood there in the moonlight, surrounded by stories, and we made our own. A story about a girl who lost herself and found herself again. A story about a boy who carried the weight of the world until someone showed him he did not have to carry it alone. A story about love, real love, the kind that sees through masks and names and pasts, the kind that says, I choose you. Not the idea of you. Not the version of you that fits neatly into a box. Just you. All of you. Always. My mother found us there an hour later, still holding each other, still talking, still marveling at the miracle of it all. There you two are, she said softly. I made tea. Come have some before bed. We followed her into the back, into the warm kitchen with the little table and the good wine and the smell of home. Why father was already there, 3 mugs waiting. We sat together. A family, broken and healed, lost and found, and as I sipped my tea and looked at the faces around that table, I realized something. This was the happy ending, not the kiss at the gala, not the dramatic courtroom victories. Not even the proposal in the moonlight. This, ordinary moments, ordinary love, ordinary people choosing each other every single day. That was the real magic, that was the real story. The next morning, I woke up in my childhood bedroom. The walls were still the pale purple I had chosen when I was 12. The bookshelves were still full of my favorite stories, the window still looked out over the backyard where I used to chase fireflies. Alexander was asleep beside me, his face peaceful, his hand reaching for me even in sleep. That I smiled, that I kissed his forehead, that I got up and walked to the window. The sun was rising, golden and warm. That it lit up the world in shades of hope. My mother was already in the kitchen. That I could hear her humming. An old song. One she used to sing to me when I was small. That I closed my eyes, and I remembered. That I remembered her voice. That I remembered the way she tucked me in. That I remembered feeling safe. That I opened my eyes, the feeling stayed, the safety, the love, the home. That I turned back to look at Alexander. That he was awake now, watching me with those stormy sea eyes. Good morning, he said. Good morning. What are you thinking about? I smiled. I am thinking about how strange life is. How it can break you and heal you in the same breath. How you can lose everything and still end up with more than you ever dreamed. He held out his hand. That I took it. Come back to bed, he said. It is early. We have time. I climbed back in beside him. That he wrapped his arms around me, and for a little while longer, we just held each other, listening to the birds outside, listening to my mother's humming, listening to the quiet miracle of being alive, together. Later that day, we walked through the town, hand in hand. Everyone we passed smiled and waved. They knew our story now, they were part of it. That we stopped at the little diner for lunch. The waitress knew my name. She brought me a milkshake without asking. Your favorite, she said. You used to come here every Saturday with your dad. Always ordered the same thing. I blinked back tears. Thank you. She squeezed my shoulder. Welcome home, Emma. After lunch, we walked to the library. The building was old and beautiful, stone steps and tall windows and the smell of 1,000 stories. That I stood at the bottom of the steps and looked up at it. This is where I wanted to work, I whispered. Alexander squeezed my hand. So work here. I have no degree. No qualifications. I have been living someone else's life for 5 years. The library doors opened. An older woman with silver hair and bright eyes stepped out. She looked at me, studied me, then she smiled. You must be Emma. I am Helen. I have been the librarian here for 40 years. I heard you were back. I nodded, suddenly shy. I used to come here as a child. I remember. You were my favorite. Always had your nose in a book. Always asking questions. Always so hungry for stories. She walked down the steps and stood in front of me. I am retiring next month. The position is yours if you want it. No degree required. Just a love of books and a kind heart. I know you have both. I could not speak. Alexander spoke for me. She would love that. Thank you. Helen smiled. Good. It is settled then. Start Monday. She walked away, just like that. Why dream, handed to me on the steps of the library where I first fell in love with stories. I looked at Alexander. He was grinning. "Well," he said. "I guess we are staying." I laughed. I actually laughed. It was the first time in 5 years I had laughed like that, free and full and real. "Yes," I said. "I guess we are." We spent the rest of the day exploring, the park where I used to swing, the school where I learned to read, the little bridge over the creek where I caught my first fish. Each place brought a memory, each memory brought a piece of me back. By evening, I was exhausted but full of past and present and future. Full of hope. We had dinner with my parents again. My father grilled burgers in the backyard. My mother made potato salad that we ate outside under the string lights. The fireflies came out as the sun went down. They danced in the dusk like tiny stars. "Tell me a story," my mother said. "About what?" I asked. "About you. About the past 5 years. About the girl who woke up in a stranger's body and found her way home." So I did that. I told them everything, the good and the bad, the lonely nights and the surprising joys, the moment I kissed a stranger at a gala and felt my whole world shift. Alexander held my hand through all of it. When I finished, the fireflies were thick in the air, the stars were out, the night was warm and perfect. My mother wiped her eyes. "You have been through so much," she said. "But I made it through. I found you. I found him. I found myself." My father raised his glass. "To Emma. To coming home. To love." We all raised our glasses. To love. And in that moment, surrounded by family and fireflies and the soft summer night, I knew that every moment of confusion, every tear, every lonely night had been worth it, because it led me here. To this table. To these people. To this life, the real one. Mine. The months that followed were a gentle unfolding, like the petals of a flower opening to the sun. I started my job at the library. Helen was right that I did not need a degree. I needed a heart that understood the magic of stories. Every morning, I walked through those old stone doors. Every morning, the smell of paper and dust and possibility wrapped around me like a hug. I helped children find their first chapter books. I helped teenagers discover authors who spoke directly to their souls. I helped adults escape into worlds far from their worries. It was not just a job. It was a calling. Alexander threw himself into the town as well. He bought the old hardware store that had been empty for years. He renovated it carefully, keeping its old soul while giving it new life. He hired local people. He paid fair wages. He became part of the community in a way the city never allowed him to be. People stopped seeing him as the billionaire CEO, they started seeing him as Alex, the man who helped Mrs. Patterson carry her heavy bags, the man who sponsored the Little League team, the man who sat on the bench outside the bookstore and talked to anyone who stopped by. My parents adored him. My father taught him how to fix things with his hands. My mother taught him how to bake her famous apple pie. He learned eagerly, like a man starved for the simple warmth of family. One evening, we were sitting on the bench outside the bookstore. The same bench where everything had shifted that first night. The sun was setting, painting the sky in shades of orange and pink. "Can I ask you something?" Alexander said. "Anything. Do you ever miss it? The city? The money? The life you had as Serena?" I thought about it, really thought about it. "No," I said finally. "I miss nothing. That life was a cage. Beautiful, but a cage. This is freedom." He nodded slowly. "I feel the same. I used to think success was about buildings and deals and numbers. Now I think success is this. A bench. A sunset. Someone you love beside you." I leaned my head on his shoulder. "We should get married soon," I said. He laughed. "You are proposing again." "I am. Get used to it. I will probably propose 100 more times before you actually marry me." He turned to face me. His stormy sea eyes were soft, full of light. "Then let's do it. Let's get married. Here. In this town. On this bench. With your parents and the library lady and the waitress from the diner who remembers your milkshake order." I smiled so wide my face hurt. "Really? Really? We kissed as the last sliver of sun disappeared below the horizon, the fireflies began their nightly dance, and I knew this was just the beginning. The wedding was small, perfect, that we held it in the park where I used to swing as a child. My mother decorated with wildflowers. My father walked me down an aisle of scattered petals. Helen from the library read a poem about love and books and happy endings. The waitress from the diner brought a tower of cupcakes, her gift to us. Alexander wore a simple suit that I wore, a white dress I found in a little shop downtown, nothing fancy, nothing expensive, but it felt like me. When we said our vows, we did not promise perfection, that we promised presence, that we promised to show up every day, that I in every way, that we promised to keep choosing each other, even when it was hard, especially when it was hard. His mother did not come, that we did not invite her. Some wounds need distance to heal. Maybe one day she would find her way, maybe not. That was her journey, not ours. That we danced under the string lights, that we ate cupcakes and laughed, that we let the town celebrate with us, because they were our family now, all of them. That night, we walked home to the little house we had bought together. It was nothing like the penthouses of our past. It had a porch with a swing. A garden out back where we planned to grow vegetables. A spare room that would one day be a nursery. We sat on the porch swing in our wedding clothes. The night was warm, the stars were bright. "Mrs. Clark," Alexander said softly. "Mr. Clark," I replied. He grinned. "I like the sound of that." "So do I." We swung gently, listening to the crickets, listening to the quiet. "I have something to tell you," I said. He looked at me. "Good news or bad news?" "Good news. I think. I hope." He waited. I took a deep breath. "I am pregnant." The words hung in the air. For one long moment, he did not move, then his face broke into the biggest smile I had ever seen. "Really? Really?" He pulled me into his arms. He held me so tight I could barely breathe, but I did not care. I did not want him to let go. "We are having a baby," he whispered into my hair. "We are having a baby." We sat on that porch swing for hours, talking about names, talking about the future, talking about the tiny person who would soon join us. A person who would grow up in this little town, who would learn to read at the library, who would chase fireflies in this very yard, who would know from the very first moment that they were loved, unconditionally, completely, forever. The pregnancy was not easy. There were hard days. Nausea that would not quit, exhaustion that felt like drowning, moments of fear. What if I was not enough? What if I repeated the mistakes of the mothers who came before? Alexander held me through every tear. He rubbed my back when I was sick. He brought me crackers and ginger ale at 2 a.m. He told me I was beautiful when I felt like a bloated whale. "You are going to be an amazing mother," he said one night. "How do you know?" "Because I have seen your heart. I have seen the way you care for everyone who walks into that library. I have seen the way you love my broken pieces. I have seen the way you hold your own parents like they are the most precious things in the world. That is the mother you will be." I cried, happy tears, scared tears, all of them. He held me through those too. The months passed and my belly grew. The library became my sanctuary. The children would pat my belly and ask questions. "Is there really a baby in there? Is it a boy or a girl? Can it hear me?" I loved every moment. Helen came by often. Retirement suited her. She would sit in the children's section and read to the little ones. She would pat my hand and tell me stories about when she was pregnant. So many years ago. So many memories. "You are luckier than you know," she said one afternoon. "I know. No. I mean really luckier. You have a man who loves you. A town that supports you. A family that waited for you. That is rare. That is precious." "I know," I said again, and I did that. I knew it every single day. The labor was long. 16 hours of pain and pushing and fear. Alexander never left my side. He held my hand. He whispered encouragement. He cried with me when I thought I could not go on. And then, finally, the sound. A cry, loud and perfect and alive. A tiny person placed on my chest, warm and wet and absolutely beautiful. "It is a girl," the doctor said. "A girl. A daughter." I looked at her tiny face, her scrunched up eyes, her little fists, and I felt something I had never felt before. A love so fierce it scared me. A love so deep it rearranged my entire soul. "Hello, little one," I whispered. "I am your mother. I have been waiting for you my whole life." Alexander leaned down, his face was wet with tears. She is perfect, he breathed. She is. We named her Hope, because that is what she was, hope for the future, hope for new beginnings, hope that love could heal anything. Them why parents came the next morning, them why mother held Hope and cried, them why father stood beside her, one hand on her shoulder, the other reaching out to touch his granddaughter's tiny fingers. She has your eyes, my mother said. Which me? I asked. Emma or Serena? My mother laughed. You. The real you. The girl who loved books and dogs and chasing fireflies. That is who I see in her. I believed her, that I believed everything in that moment, that we took Hope home to the little house with the porch swing, that we set up the nursery in the spare room, pale purple walls, bookshelves full of children's stories, that a rocking chair by the window where I could nurse her and look out at the garden. Alexander had built the crib himself, with his own hands. The man who once signed billion-dollar deals now measured and sanded and varnished, that he took such care, such pride. I want her to know, he said, that her father built her first bed. That it was made with love. That she was wanted from the very beginning. I watched him work, and I fell in love with him all over again. The first year was a blur of sleepless nights and tiny milestones, first smile, first laugh, first time she rolled over, first tooth, first time she said, Mama. I cried every time. Alexander teased me gently. You are going to cry at everything, aren't you? Yes, I admitted. Probably forever. He kissed my forehead. Good. I love that about you. Hope grew, she learned to crawl, then walk, then run, she learned to say, Dada, and, book, and, no, with impressive authority. She loved the library as much as I did, that I would take her to work with me. She would sit in the children's section and, read, to herself, turning pages, pointing at pictures, making up stories in her own little language. Helen came by often, she would read to Hope for hours. Their voices drifting through the library like music. Alexander's hardware store thrived, that he started a program. Teaching local kids how to build things, how to use tools, how to create with their hands, that he said it was the most important work he had ever done. That I believed him. One evening, when Hope was 3, we were sitting on the porch swing, the three of us, Hope on my lap. Alexander's arm around me, the fireflies were starting their nightly dance. Mama, Hope said. Tell me a story. What kind of story? A real one. About you and Daddy. I looked at Alexander. He nodded. So I began. Once upon a time, there was a girl who got lost. She woke up one day in a place she did not recognize, with people she did not know, living a life that did not feel like hers. Hope listened with wide eyes. She was very lonely. Very scared. But she did not give up. She kept looking for the truth. And one night, at a big party full of fancy people, she met a man with sad eyes. Daddy, Hope said. Yes. Daddy. He had sad eyes because he had been lonely too. But when they kissed, something magical happened. They could see each other. Really see each other. And they decided never to let go. Hope snuggled closer. What happened next? They went on adventures. They found the girl's real family. They moved to a little town. They built a life together. And then, the most wonderful thing happened. They had a baby girl. The most beautiful, clever, amazing baby girl in the whole world. That is me, Hope said. That is you. Hope was quiet for a moment, then she said, Mama. Are you still lost? I kissed the top of her head. No, my love. I am found. I am right here. With you and Daddy. This is exactly where I belong. The fireflies danced, the stars came out, and on that little porch swing, in that little town, with my little family, I knew the truth. The story was not over. It would never be over. Every day was a new page, every moment a new word, every laugh a new sentence in the beautiful, endless book of us, and I could not wait to see what happened next. Years passed like pages turning in a well-loved book. Hope grew from a toddler into a girl with pigtails and scraped knees. she inherited her father's stormy sea eyes and my love of stories. Every night, we read together on the porch swing. Every night, she asked for the same story, the one about the girl who got lost and found her way home, the one about the prince with sad eyes who learned to laugh again, the one about love. Always about love. Alexander's hair gained streaks of silver. He looked distinguished, handsome in a way that made my heart skip even after all these years. He still held my hand when we walked through town. He still brought me tea in bed every morning. He still looked at me like I was the most precious thing in the world. Why parents aged gracefully. Why father's hands were slower now, but he still fixed things in the bookstore. Why mother's hair was completely white, but she still hummed while she baked. They adored Hope, spoiled her rotten, exactly as grandparents should. Helen passed away peacefully in her sleep. She was 92 years old. The town held a memorial in the library. We placed a plaque by the children's section. In loving memory of Helen March. She gave us stories. She gave us herself. I took over as head librarian. It felt right. It felt like home. Hope started school. She made friends. She learned to read on her own. She would come to the library after class and sit at the little table in the children's section. She would read to the younger kids, just like Helen used to. Just like I used to dream of doing. One afternoon, a woman walked into the library. She was older now, her hair was gray. Her face was lined with years and choices, but I recognized her immediately. Alexander's mother. She stood at the entrance, looking uncertain, looking small, looking nothing like the cold queen from that gala so many years ago. Emma, she said quietly. I did not speak. I could not. I am not here to cause trouble. I am not here to ask for anything. I wanted to see you. To see him. To see if there was any chance. Her voice trailed off. I thought about all the pain she had caused, the years of grief Alexander carried because of her, the lies, the manipulation, the cruelty, but I also thought about something Helen once told me. Holding on to anger is like drinking poison and expecting the other person to die. I took a deep breath. Wait here. I called Alexander. He came to the library within minutes. When he saw his mother, he froze. For a long moment, no one moved. Then his mother spoke. Alexander. I know I do not deserve to call you my son. I know I have no right to ask for anything. But I am old now. I am alone. And I have spent every day since that night regretting every choice I made. Alexander's jaw tightened. Why now? After all these years? Because I am dying. The words hung in the air, blunt and honest and final. I have 6 months. Maybe less. The doctors say there is nothing they can do. And in these last months, I do not want to be alone. I do not want to die without telling you I am sorry. Alexander looked at me. I saw the war in his eyes, the boy who mourned his mother for 20 years, the man she tried to destroy. I walked to him and took his hand. It is your choice, I said softly. Whatever you decide, I am with you. He looked back at his mother. She was crying, real tears. For the first time, I saw vulnerability in her face, not manipulation, not strategy, just a broken old woman facing the end of her life. I cannot forgive you, Alexander said slowly. Not yet. Maybe not ever. But I can give you a place to stay. I can give you a chance to know your granddaughter. That is all I have right now. His mother nodded, tears streaming down her face. That is more than I deserve. Thank you. The last 6 months of her life were complicated, painful at times, healing at others. She met Hope, with her endless curiosity and her open heart, asked the questions adults were too afraid to ask. Why were you mean to Daddy? Why did you go away? Why are you here now? His mother answered them all, honestly, without excuses. I was scared, she said. I was angry. I made terrible choices. I hurt the people I should have protected. I cannot change that. But I can say I am sorry. And I can try to be better now. Hope thought about this, then she climbed onto her grandmother's lap. Everyone makes mistakes, she said. Mama says that is how we learn. His mother cried that we all did. I end those 6 months, something shifted, not forgiveness, exactly, more like understanding, more like acceptance. His mother was not the monster from the gala, she was a woman who had been broken long before she broke others. She had her own story, her own pain, her own regrets. On her last night, we all gathered in her room. Alexander me. Hope. My parents came too. They sat quietly in the corner, witnesses to a difficult grace. His mother looked at each of us, her eyes were tired, but there was peace in them, something I had never seen before. I am not afraid, she whispered. I should be. But I am not. Because I am leaving knowing that my son is loved. That my granddaughter will grow up surrounded by kindness. That somehow, in these last months, I got a tiny piece of my family back. She reached for Alexander's hand. He took it. I am proud of you, she said. The man you became. Not because of me. In spite of me. That takes strength. Real strength. Alexander could not speak. He just held her hand. She looked at me. Take care of them. You are stronger than you know. You always were. Even when you did not know who you were, you had a good heart. That is what matters. That is all that matters. I nodded, tears streaming down my face. She looked at Hope last. My little star. Keep shining. Keep asking questions. Keep loving. It is the only thing that lasts. Hope leaned forward and kissed her cheek. Good night, Grandma. Good night, my love. She closed her eyes, and she was gone. The funeral was small, quiet. We buried her in the town cemetery, under a big oak tree. Alexander stood at the grave for a long time after everyone else left. I stood with him, holding his hand. I do not know how to feel, he said finally. You do not have to know. You just have to feel. He was quiet for a long moment. I am sad. But I am also relieved. Does that make me terrible? No. It makes you human. He pulled me close. We have a good life, Emma. We do. A good daughter. A good home. Good people around us. Yes. Thank you. For everything. For kissing a stranger at a gala. For seeing me when I could not see myself. For building this life with me. I looked up at him. His stormy sea eyes were wet, but they were also full of light. I would do it all again, I said. Every confusing moment. Every painful discovery. Every single step. Because it led me here. To you. To hope. To this. He kissed me, right there in the cemetery, under the big oak tree, with the autumn leaves falling around us. Life went on. It always does. Hope grew taller, she lost her pigtails and gained a teenage attitude. She discovered boys and then discovered they were not worth the drama. She found her passion in teaching, just like me, just like Helen. She went to college and came back home. She started working at the elementary school down the street. She married a kind boy from the next town over. They had a daughter. They named her Helen. Alexander and I grew older together. We took walks every evening. We held hands on the porch swing every night. We watched the fireflies dance and remembered the girl who woke up in a stranger's body, remembered the boy with sad eyes who learned to laugh, remembered the life we built from the ashes of two broken pasts. One evening, when we were very old, we sat on that porch swing. Our hair was white, our hands were spotted, but our love was as strong as ever. Daddy. Mama. It was Hope. She was 40 now. A mother herself, but to us, she was still our little girl. What is it, sweetheart? I asked. She sat down beside us. Helen, her daughter, climbed onto my lap, just like Hope used to. Tell me a story, Grandma, little Helen said. What kind of story? The one about the girl who got lost and found her way home. I smiled. I looked at Alexander. He smiled back. All right, I said. Once upon a time, there was a girl who woke up in a life that was not hers. She was scared. She was alone. She did not know who she was or where she belonged. Little Helen listened with wide eyes. But she did not give up. She kept looking for the truth. And one night, at a big party full of fancy people, she met a man with sad eyes. That was Grandpa, Hope said. Yes. That was Grandpa. And when they kissed, something magical happened. They could see each other. Really see each other. And they decided never to let go. What happened next? Little Helen asked. They went on adventures. They found her real family. They moved to a little town. They built a life together. They had a baby girl. And then that baby girl grew up and had her own baby girl. And they all lived, I paused, little Helen finished for me. Happily ever after. I kissed her forehead. Yes, my love. Happily ever after. But as I said those words, I realized something. Happily ever after was not the end that it was never the end that it was every single day, every single choice, every single moment of showing up and choosing love. Happily ever after was the porch swing, the fireflies, the child on my lap, the man beside me, the life we built together, piece by piece, day by day, choice by choice. The moral of the story is this: you can lose yourself completely, you can wake up in a life that feels like someone else's, you can face cruelty and confusion and pain, but if you hold on to your heart, that if you see the pain in others and choose kindness anyway, that if you keep looking for the truth, that if you let yourself be loved, then you will find your way home. Home is not a place, that it is not a name, that it is not a past or a future. Home is the people who see you, really see you, and choose you anyway. Home is the love you build, day by day, moment by moment, choice by choice, and that love lasts forever. The end. Thank you for listening to this heartfelt story. If it moved you, share it, comment below, and let someone know you are never alone.